Welcome to Food Ed, the podcast that explores the vital role food plays in the classroom. Join us as we dive into the latest research, share best practices, and hear from experts in the field. Let's work together to create a school environment where every student can thrive. Let's become food educated together.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Food Ed podcast. I'm your host, Svetlana Elgart, and today I'm super excited to introduce to you Dean Goldfein, the head of school of Contra Costa Jewish Day School. Welcome to the Food Ed podcast, Dean. Very good to meet you.
Thank you. I'm really excited to join you and talk about food and education, whatever you'd like to talk about.
Well, wonderful. So I just wanted you to say hi to our audience and to introduce yourself a little bit. Tell us about yourself, what you're currently doing, your passion, and most of all, your favorite food.
Okay. Well, I'm Dean Goldfein. I work at a school in the San Francisco Bay Area called Contra Costa Jewish Day School. Contra Costa is a region just to the east of Oakland, Berkeley. About 2/3 of our students come from Contra Costa, and the other third, maybe 40%, from Oakland, Berkeley. The school has 175 students in grades K through 8, and we've been here for 23 years, and I've been here since the school started, when we started with 23 students.
Oh my gosh.
My favorite food, I really like a lot of different foods, but I'll say I just had a delicious sushi dinner the other night, and I enjoy Italian food. I took our admin team, all went out to lunch to close the year, and there's a wonderful Italian restaurant in the area we enjoyed.
Oh, very good. All right. So tell us a little bit about your school, your community, your students. So this school's been around 23 years.
Sure. We're a community Jewish day school, which is a type of Jewish day school, which means that we do not have any particular denominational affiliation. About a quarter of our population, one or both parents are Israeli, another roughly similar amount of Russian Jewish families. About half of the families are affiliated with a particular denomination of Judaism, Reform, Conservative, Orthodox. So in terms of amount of day, because people really will wonder, how much of your day is in Hebrew and Judaics, and roughly 30% of the day is in Hebrew Judaics. We are always looking at the same academic skills, so kids are writing and reading in Hebrew class, which is once a week. And I teach history and 7th grade Judaics, and I teach them like I taught history when I worked at a Catholic school for 10 years, teaching writing and critical thinking and reading, and as a humanities core discipline. If you were to come to the school, it would feel very much like a regular school, but it's set in a Jewish context. And that speaking modern Hebrew is absolutely vital, because half the Jewish people in the world speak Hebrew. And as we're looking at, and that's something American Jews don't think about a lot, and and yet it is the truth. And it's a remarkable development over the last 110 years, because 110, 20 years ago, only about 1-2% of the population of Jews in the world spoke Hebrew. So that's why the commitment to Hebrew language, and of course to the Jewish state of Israel.
Wonderful. That sounds fantastic. My children went to Brandeis, so I'm aware. Mm-hmm. My background, I am a Russian, Ukrainian Jew. My parents immigrated here in the late 70s. So I was born in Odessa, Ukraine. Wow. So I hear what you're saying.
I've gotten to really know and work closely with a lot of those families. In fact, the founding person, the founding president, founder who got the school started is a wonderful woman named Mila, who came to the United States from Eastern Europe when she was 21, and her children were all grown, and she thought this area needs a Jewish day school and started organizing it. So our heritage is there, and I've learned a lot about the central importance of math education from our Russian Jewish families. That's an ongoing communication. Yes. So we have an outstanding math program, I feel, and yet there's always more we can do in the area of all disciplines, but in that particular subgroup, there's always conversation there, which is great.
Yes.
And it's really a part of being in a Jewish community that you work with a range of families. I was going to say it's my background is from Bobroisk, Minsk, Belarus,
Okay.
but it's 1905 when my grandfather, who I never met,
1905.
came. So,
Okay.
And yet the school has a lot of diversity, and this relates to food in some ways. In that a good portion of our Jewish community is Mizrahi Sephardi, non-Ashkenazi communities from North Africa, what we think of as Iraq and Iran, what we know as those countries today. So there's a lot of cultural diversity within the Jewish community that for people who are coming new to this, to the Jewish community through this particular interview, I think it's definitely relevant to food, and of course the central importance of how Israeli food has developed, because 100 plus years ago that wasn't part of the conversation.
Does your school keep kosher?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
To this standard, for the people watching, listening, kosher, there's lots of different ways to be kosher. Some Jewish communities say kosher style. Some communities say we're kosher to this standard. And I grew up in a very positive Reformed Jewish community in San Francisco and had some awareness of kashrut, kosher laws. But obviously through this work, I've become much more aware of it and have a couple of funny stories related to it. But we do keep kosher so that if a family is dati, which is the Hebrew word for religious, meaning traditionally religious, I'll explain that we offer food. Anytime we serve food to students, it's going to be kosher to an modern Orthodox standard, because we do have some of those families in our community. Okay. And when we travel, we work very hard to keep that standard and meaning field trips, things like that. I could unpack those if you want. But we don't have someone on site who's trained to observe what we're doing, called a moshkiach, or ritual observant. We do for major events we put on. We actually pay for someone who comes and inspects everything, and after the event, we box it up, and he or she signs off. So that's a very, probably too long-winded introduction to what kosher means.
Well, can you give us just a quick synopsis of the basics of kosher? Sure. Just tell people what that kind of entails.
Come from, and again, I'm not a rabbi. People will say, "Oh, Rabbi Goldfein." No, they just saved me 7 years of study to getting my rabbinic. I'm not, but I have worked now in the Jewish community, and these laws, as I've learned and told, they say 2 Jewish people, 3 opinions. So somebody will watch this and say, no, he got it wrong. I'm sure I'll get it wrong. But they come from the Torah. There's sections of the Torah is the Hebrew part of the Hebrew Bible. Because there's Torah, which is the 5 books of Moses, and then there's the Nevi'im, Ketuvim, which are Jewish sacred texts, things like the prophets. And so there are sections in there that call out for what you can and can't eat, and there's a lot. I could go on for a long time, and I would make more and more mistakes. But essentially, certain foods are not allowed to be eaten. Pork, shellfish. I was just out the other day with a group of people, and they asked me the question. I was like, well, I was taught that you're allowed to eat any seafood that has gills, so catfish doesn't count. Squid, shrimp, a lot of stuff I grew up eating because my dad was from Baltimore, Maryland, and we would regularly go for stone-shell crabs. And since becoming in my mid-20s, I've largely kept to kosher provisions or protocols. So, and then not mixing milk and meat. So like at our home and in the school, we have 2 sets of dishes. Dairy products and fish can go on those. Although some people, my wife grew up in a more traditionally observant family, and they actually did have separate dishes. My mother-in-law would bring out separate dishes when we would have fish. But that's called a minhag, a custom, not a law. So that separation of milk and meat. And the way I understand these, or the way I've why they are important to me is it's all part of kind of being aware and conscious of what we're eating and respect for tradition, of course. Some people say, oh, are there nutritional or health benefits to doing it? I really don't personally think so, because I eat kosher, and I can see, there's equal amount of preservatives in some and healthy in others. So I just think that I do think it's healthy to be aware of what we're eating, and be conscious of it, and be conscious these are living beings if we're choosing to eat meat.
This episode is brought to you by Rainbow Chefs Academy. Rainbow Chefs Academy provides turnkey nutrition and wellness training for schools, home-based, and after-school programs. For more information, please check the link in the show notes or visit rainbowchefsacademy.com. And now, back to the show.
We were brought up Jewish, but as you know, not to the standard as you were talking about. So all of this was things that I actually learned as I became older, and when we immigrated, we were able to, I guess, learn more, because there it was very, very basic. But I think there are some very healthful attributes in kosher, for example, eating. There are some for sure, just like, the meat, I think the biggest to me is the meat and the dairy thing, because in reality,
the most important.
I think that's probably, it's not the hardest, it's actually probably it's healthy not to mix meat with dairy, so it's probably that way. But yes, what you described, you did a great job. You described the basics of kosher food. You didn't go too extremes, because there are extremes depending on how you're raised and where you're from and all of that. So
people are very passionate about this, particularly people who don't choose to, which is what I grew up with, feeling, and I understand it. I feel really fortunate to work in a community school and to have had the background of growing up in a very positive Reform Jewish background, and then living more observantly or traditionally observant. I always work hard to say traditionally observant, because Reform Jews are very observant as well in their own way. So being told, hey, with this event or needs to be kosher to be inclusive, people are, well, that's not including me, because I want to eat these things, and this is how I express my Judaism is through this particular practice. So or to feel judged. We work really hard that it's not a judgmental thing, that's an educational thing.
Sure.
And so that is, but I'm always conscious and aware that when you're bringing people into community, and food's a way that you welcome people, you work hard to explain these things in a way that is, hey, we're really trying to make the tent really big here. And generally to live by kosher rules in this San Francisco Bay Area, which I think is the 5th or 6th largest Jewish community in the world. And I think there's 3 Jewish restaurant/delis, 3 places. There's apparently caterers that will provide your meal, but for anybody trying to live Jewishly, it's hard to call it, trying to live by traditional kashrut, to live in the Bay Area is extremely hard. They ship, there are places to buy these things, but to eat out, people want to, or to have an event. It can be challenging.
So that kind of moves us into your school and if you have, and how you are approaching, and if you are approaching any kind of health, wellness, and nutrition education. What does your food education look like?
Yeah.
Do you believe that it's important to define healthy culture for children from the young age? Just want to hear what you guys are currently
really is,
doing.
And I have a couple. It is. It's a part of our health ed curriculum. We have a couple teachers who, and one of them studied nutrition. Teaches 4th grade. Was teaching science. Definitely that was part of why we started the hot lunch program we did when we moved into our new. It's not anymore 15-year-old building, but we realized we have a kitchen now. We can make meals, and we want them to be healthy. All natural ingredients. We wanted to offer meat a couple of days a week because we're a dairy pescatarian school.
Sure.
Like we don't we request that families not pack meat. So they want, well, okay, can we have meat a couple days that you provide? So it happens there. And I just spoke at an event because our 12-year lunch director is moving on, and she's been great. And we were celebrating her in front of the whole community at graduation. And I thanked her for introducing my children to vegetables they liked, because you really, the kids get turned on to good tasting food that somebody else makes instead of the parent. So, and a lot of people, shared the gratitude, because we start with those kids being excited about having hot lunch Tuesday through Thursday. There's an interesting kind of, within our Jewish community, there is I won't spend much time on it, but it is interesting. And within the school community, we have the challenge of celebrations, because we want them to be warm and welcoming. If the birthday celebrations, people want to make things, but we have these guidelines, like we're not going to serve things. So a number of times, and so it falls to pre-processed sugary snacks that people can get someplace. So that's a problem, is because they have a 𝐻𝐸 or certified. If you see on products, and you know this, I'm sure, you see on products in the store either a K, sometimes even Hebrew language, but mostly it's a U with a circle around it, which stands for the Orthodox Union. And I think 60-70% of goods you would find in a typical supermarket have it. When I'm trying to introduce people to kashrut, I'll show them, look, these things you have, they have a kosher symbol on them. So those things tend to be heavy with preservatives and things. One time a parent said, I forgot to get things. Could you get something? I said, sure, I'll run out and get something for your child's birthday. And the only thing in the market were Entman's donuts. I'm doing commercial Entman's. And it was Easter. And so all of their packaging was in Easter stuff, which I was fine. It's fine, Easter eggs and whatnot. But here I was bringing into the Jewish school, we have to have these donuts because it's the only dessert item, which are, I think we could probably agree, terrible for kids. And here I was, providing them to the kids because they wanted their sweet snack. And they were decorated in, a non-Jewish symbol, Easter eggs and bunnies. And I just explained what it was. It's a different group's holiday, and we got them because they're kosher. But we had for a number of years, hadn't had in a couple of years, a Friday store that is called a 𝗗𝐿𝑜t, which is the Hebrew word for store, or, like a corner market. And we started selling a whole variety of products, but essentially what kids wanted, and what a lot of the families who grew up with this wanted, was sweets. The things like 𝗵𝐻𝐿𝑜t, which are a log of chocolate. All these things are delicious. My kids love them, and there was a frenzy around it. And there is a very significant group who does not want sugar, and we don't want to be pushing sugar. And so we started to try to limit it. And then that group who grew up going to their corner store in Israel, because were upset that we were curtailing the sugar that they grew up with. Like, it's not a lot, it's not happening, just once a week. And so it was an area of cultural contention, including within the Israeli community. Some were like, yeah, but it was terrible for us. Shouldn't we develop and grow?
Yes.
There are other things we can eat. And like, well, not that you buy at the 𝗗𝐿𝑜t. And like, so it was educational. Again, not bad, but I definitely learned from it.
So tell me about you said you have a nutritional curriculum. How does that work in your school? Is that something that they do once a week, every week?
Curriculum that we on things like that, or later puberty education. We follow the California state standards. Our science teacher builds that into the upper grade units, and just talks about what does it mean to be healthy? What does it mean to have healthy eating habits, healthy relationships, a healthy way of building community together? And so it's a piece of an overall approach to what's a healthy lifestyle, balance. This is true of the high schools. So
it's just on related to the California standards, whatever you're mandated to do. You kind of work that in.
That starts with as a guide, and then good teaching is how do you make it real. So you notice, I don't know if I said Tuesday through Thursday is our standard hot lunch program. So there's some education through that, because about 2/3 of the kids get that hot lunch Tuesday through Thursdays. Pasta Tuesday, hamburger, hot dog. We always have vegetarian, vegan options for everybody, but hot dog, hamburgers, or hamburgers on Wednesdays, and then chicken, a variety of different chickens. Citrus chicken, the most popular, shawarma, which is an Israeli type, and a
Love that one.
So that rotates. Fridays, and tofu is usually the alternative veggie option, all in the same sauce. But Mondays and Fridays, the kitchen's open. Although you have to keep it for kashrut reasons, yes, but also just the person who runs the lunch program says, yeah, okay, but you better leave that kitchen clean for me. And she's really great about it, keeping it orderly so everything's there when you need it. But those are times where I've seen classes, or we have electives where kids are going deeper and learning more about putting together. And we have after-school classes that use that kitchen. So a lot of the hands-on work of nutrition in a real deep, meaningful way, I think, happens there because they're actually cooking.
The kids are cooking?
Yeah. A teacher will take them in there and
we're
going to make rugula.
So you've got some hands-on going on. You've got some education,
a
little bit of
huge, but a nice. We have a nice stainless steel kitchen. That's also somewhat rare because the reason make it all stainless steel isn't because we're producing so much stuff. In fact, most of those meals I described are made on our barbecue. Just little prep work is done there. But we did that because when we were building the building, we asked the rabbi who is in a mashgiach, what's the easiest, how should we build it? He said, do stainless steel, because if you make mistakes, you can clean up afterwards. If you violate, which you will, you can clean it up. But the fire marshal came in and saw all this stainless steel and said, you're going to be making meals for hundreds in here. It's an industrial kitchen. And I said, no, we're not going to be doing that. But he was much harder on us because of all this stainless steel, and required us to move the oven out. We were going to open in 2 weeks. We had to move it out of the building to a storage shed until we had signage saying that we wouldn't. It's still in the kitchen above that we wouldn't fry anything on the because that's what they're worried about. So it's good safety concerns. But
yes,
we
safety
don't fry
for sure. Are you aware of the rising diabetes and obesity that's going on in the community of kids by the age of 12 and 13? We have 1 out of 6 kids diabetic and obese in USA. So I guess my question to you, because you're exposed to so many different, you run the school, I see you have a lot of experience in curriculum and all the things that you do, and your ability to do. What do you think would be, just your thoughts, what would be the best approach that you think schools can take in offsetting diabetes and obesity and educating the kids?
I'll give you my sense of it, and probably
your sense of it,
because I'm not a physician, I'm not a nutritionist. But I think schools that are devoted to a wellness curriculum that is both mental and physical health of the children, particularly in all communities. It definitely is a high priority for all schools that I interact with in our area. One of the things about this area is a real focus on physical movement, education. Like, that is a continual pressure, and it's a good one, on us as a small school. Like, okay, you built that. We just built a outdoor, like a basketball court, volleyball court. Everybody was excited about that. Like, what next? Can we have a climbing structure put in? We'd like a bigger field. There's an area nearby. Do you think we could develop it? And that's one of the most, you'd think, a small private school. Yes, I mentioned like math curriculum for our community. That's always going to get a lot of attention. Absolutely physical and movement. And I think that's tied to the lack of movement that a lot of people are feeling happening because they see their kids on devices all the time.
Yes.
And so that's a piece. I think I would make a strong case for avoiding those prepackaged foods to parents, and I do, and yet it's so convenient. We have busy, we're all busy. So I mean, my as a parent, and I have 3 children, it's real convenient and easy to order to DoorDash. The kids are always eager. Oh, can we DoorDash today? Like Wednesdays, I think is the one day where we will. And I built that in early because I could say, oh, they really love having dinner out. So once a week, we will go out. We're
Yeah,
fortunate to be able
sure.
to do that. But I know it's not as healthy as when we cook ourselves.
Of course. Of course.
Setting limits, setting boundaries, understanding it's not extreme, but...
Yeah. Well, I mean, I like what you said about, developing, I think wellness curriculum is excellent. I mean, I think it should be part of school. I think educating kids and educators and community, what do you think about schools working closer together to offset this problem with diabetes and obesity and becoming like partners in health and really, using, because kids are in school so many hours of the day. So what do you think about doing an approach where not only are schools working with kids and the parents and the community, and I love the wellness curriculum. I think that's something that's missing altogether. I don't think very many schools have that.
Many schools, especially small schools, and I don't know why I didn't think to mention it. We have a very active school garden that one class has ownership over, and also we have middle school electives. So that's another place where, nutrition and
that's beautiful. And do you guys use the school garden?
Yeah, we do.
Do you guys use?
Do. It doesn't produce enough. I mean, we have like 8 beds, and we have some chickens that we're using for.
Oh,
eggs.
You have chickens.
Yeah, it's
very
part of the
nice.
kindergarten curriculum. We hatch them. It's a kindergarten science curriculum. So we give them most of them away, but we keep a couple each year. I'm not. I mean, the schools working together as a smaller private school. We have a network of other Jewish schools in the area, and we talk about curriculum. We talk about what we're doing in concert. I'm not quite sure what it would look like, other than that. I don't think you're going to get much debate or discussion. Only support for the idea that schools prioritize health.
Yes. Well, I also really liked what you said about the movement, because really those are the two arms that go together: health, wellness, and eating and movement. If you put those two together, you're on the right path. So it seems like you guys are doing great, and you have that on your radar, and you guys are doing a lot of different things to get there, which I think I applaud you. That's wonderful. And I hope that every school has the opportunity and understands the importance of this. I want to tell you that it's been super fun for me to be with you here today.
Thanks.
I really
don't get much
enjoyed
of a chance
it.
to talk about food, certainly in a formal setting like this, or infants. Didn't feel too formal. And I appreciate your work. You're prioritizing. You're prioritizing something important. So I encourage the effort. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much. Nice to meet you too. I'm going to send you a backpack. We have a backpack from Rainbow Chefs Academy. That backpack has all the tools that a child needs to cook themselves a healthy meal. So I'm going to send that over to you just as a thank you. And I will be keeping in touch with you.
Thanks for that.
Keep up the great work. Your leadership is amazing. And, it's been I think it's a very informative, fun podcast that you and I had today. Made me think about some of my roots, as you were talking.
Well, food does that. Food pulls us back to different times. And different places, and who we are as a community, and our own individual journeys. So.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, it's my pleasure.
Yeah.
I will send you an email. We'll be in touch.
Okay.
And thank you so much again.
Be well.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform and on YouTube. Let's work together to create a school environment where every student can thrive while becoming food educated together. We will see you next week on Food Ed.